We have Subhash Chandra Garg, who's going to be talking to us right now. And he's going to be sharing about India's dream of becoming a high-income country. Subhash Garg is somebody, if you do not know, then that means you do not understand India or know about India. In fact, he's the former finance secretary to the government of India. And of course, if you really understand the structure of how the government works, the chief economic advisor, as you would call it, falls under the finance secretary's dominion. So a lot of people think that chief economic advisor is very important, but it is incidentally the secretary who's his boss and who runs the thing. So anything that is said right or wrong by the chief economic advisor has been approved by the finance secretary or whatever. But the most important thing is that he has done some amazing work in the last few years. In fact, his book on the $10 trillion dream is something that I'd read. And I was just absolutely amazed by the depth of work that he had actually done there. And of course, he also has done another book called We Also Do Policy, if I remember. Yeah, We Also Make Policy. A lot of people take him as a critic at points in time, but I think his heart is at the right place as a true patriot in many, many ways, wherein he wants the country to progress and move forward. So, Mr. Garg, thanks a lot for joining us from all the way from Delhi. Your 20 minutes start now.
Thank you, Amit. Thank you very much. So we have in last 2 days heard a lot about the big stride which India is making, the fastest growing economy, the largest, third largest economy in the making very soon. What I'm going to do is to bring a bit of a reality check. But before that, let me just trace out for you the journey of sort of defining the dream of India for that matter. So it was 2019-20 budget, interim budget, which Piyush Goyal presented just before the elections of 2019. I happened to be the Secretary Economic Affairs at that time, in charge of the budget. And it was that budget where Government of India, for the first time, said we want to make India a $10 trillion economy by 2035. So that was the first expression of India's ambition to become a high-income economy. After the election, the government came back. Mr. Modi was back. He loves, at least used to love it until that time, to specify more specific and somewhat shorter-term goals. So in 2019 June, the Niti Ayog's governing council met, and in that meeting, a decision was taken that let us have an intermediate goal of $5 trillion economy by 2024. So we had set these two goals, which was repeated in the budget, which I was again instrumental in presenting the regular budget in July 2019. So we had two specified goals by the government, $10 trillion economy by 2035 and $5 trillion economy by 2024-25. Certain developments led me to leave the government after that, but that dream stayed with me, and that is what led to my first book, this $10 trillion dream. So I am showing this only to say that I'm very deeply wedded and committed to this goal of making or seeing India a $10 trillion economy as soon as possible. Now, that is where, after that, something like 4 to 5 years have gone, we had 2 bad years, in a way. In 2019-20, the growth was only about 3.7%. Next year, it was, in fact, a contraction. For the last 3 years, we have been having amazingly good growth, plus 7% or so. So what has been the journey of India's growth in last 4 years? where are we with respect to our $5 trillion economy goal, which is just approaching, 24, 25 is coming, and how are we moving towards 10 trillion? And in the meantime, now we have a larger, longer concept of Viksit Bharat also being sort of presented to us. What I'll do is, while Mr. Kant, he is the biggest salesman which India has, or Indian Administrative Service has produced. So he can sail a communist Kerala as God's own country. He can also sail Atal Bihari Vajpayee and Manmohan Singh's government as incredible India, when India was a lot of the broken roads, potholed and that kind of thing. So it's easier for him, to my mind, to sail the India as the largest growing economy and very soon to be. But that is what it is. But I also heard yesterday Mr. Burman, who I found quite reactive and extremely negative. I thought it shouldn't have been the case. He was entitled to present the other side, but perhaps it went a little overboard. But yesterday at the dinner time, I heard Jay Chaudhary, who, to my mind, presented a very sensible approach that whenever we want to do or whatever we are doing well, let us spend 5 minutes to pat ourselves at our back, but for 55 minutes we should actually be doing a very critical kind of analysis. So 10% petting and 90% a deep dive into the critical side of it is what I'm trying to do. I like that approach. So first, let me speak about the growth, the reality of the growth. So India is growing at 7% plus for last 3 years, good growth. Globally, the growth is only about 3 to 4% or even lesser, and at 7% plus, it is very good. Yesterday, a very good mention was made about the third quarter number coming, where 8.4% growth, very nice growth, it looks like that. So it seems that we are on a very high growth path. But 3 checkpoints. Number one, if you looked at a little more carefully, the data which was put out yesterday about the growth, 8.4%, tucked away inside that was a number that the GVA growth, I don't know, there are some economists here, definitely. The GVA is gross value added, which is the supply side contribution towards the growth. That was 6.5%, whereas GDP is 8.4%. The rest of the contribution came from the taxes, net taxes addition. So real economy grew only by 6.5%. That's one. Second, as I just mentioned a little while ago, while last 3 years average is at about 7.3 or 7.4% plus, which is good, if you take 5 years average of the current government's time, take into account 1920, and the negative growth of 2021, the 5 years growth is only 4.3%. So this 5 years growth, unfortunately, happens to be the lowest growth India has witnessed in any government's time in last 33 years after 1991. That's the fact of the situation. And the last point I'll mention about is the reference towards this $5 trillion economy. So in 1819, we were at $2.8 trillion. That is the time when this goal was set. Right. Today, after 5 years have gone, we are at 3.55 trillion. In fact, going back to the data which was released yesterday, another number which was tucked away in that data was that our nominal GDP, so we produce the first advance number, which are released on 6th or 7th of January, just before the budget. And then we release the second advanced number at the end of February. So yesterday, second advanced numbers were released. So when the first advanced number were released, the nominal GDP was 296.5 trillion rupees. Yesterday, when the second advanced numbers are released, the nominal GDP is 293.8 trillion. In 1 month, the nominal GDP has gone down by 2.7 or 2.8 trillion rupees. So growth has gone up to 8.4%, but the nominal GDP has actually gone down by, these are all numbers in the same press release. I'm not inventing anything. So in January, we had for 23-24, which is the year just gone by, we were at $3.6 trillion in terms of dollars. So it's simple. You divide by 2.96 by about 82, 83, whatever is the rate, 83, that number comes. By this 2.5 trillion rupees reduction, the GDP has, in dollar terms, gone down by something like $0.4 billion. So that is the effect. So we are at about $3.55 trillion today. In 5 years, we have come from 2.8 trillion to 3.55 trillion. We have covered the distance of only 0.75 trillion in 5 years. We have 1.45 trillion, the distance to be covered in next 1 year. We will not do it. So this $5 trillion goal is unlikely to be achieved for another 2 to 3 years. And there is one more factor, taking from Mr. J. Chaudhary's advice, so to say. This $5 trillion goal was set in 2019, and it was in 2019 dollars. The dollar keeps on depreciating also. In last 5 years, the dollar has depreciated by something close to 10%. If you neutralize that, we are virtually where we were in 2019. So please keep this in mind, the reality whenever we talk about 2047, $35 trillion economy or 40 trillion, all these are meaningless numbers. Right. So let me now come to the other aspect. So a lot has been made about, and we have done phenomenal work. Let me take one, for example, one or two. The digital India. That is a very big success story. We have created a massively functional, working, digital public infrastructure. What we have done basically is we have created these stacks of Aadhaar identity, the mobile connectivity, and one which is our biggest innovation is, which is nowhere else, is that we have brought all the bank accounts in all the banks of India together into one single digital bank, literally. And therefore, since there is one single digital bank, you can make the transfers very easily by the click of a button. And that's why it happens very fast and very good. And it has become universal, literally. You can go to villages also where people have started making digital payments. 2 cross-point checks. One, who has enabled most of this? Ideally, the bank should have done it, but banks have not done it. 75 to 80% of the transactions even today are enabled by 2 companies. the Google Pay and the Flipkart, Phone Pay. Both of them are foreign owned. Our banks have not done it. Second thing, what is our cash in circulation today? When the demonetization was made in 2016, the cash in circulation was about 16 trillion rupees. Cash in circulation today is 34 trillion rupees. The cash to GDP ratio today is higher than the cash to GDP ratio there. So what does it mean? It means that there's still lots of cash transaction. We count a lot of digital transaction, but we don't count how much of the cash transaction also takes place in the economy. That is where I travel. You are living here. Whether you use any mode, I don't think there is anything wrong about using credit card for payments of digital. That's equally good digital payment. Whether you use it through the UPI or you use it through the credit cards, it makes no difference. The point is, it should be digital. That is what it enables. And if from that point of view, if we look at it, in most of the European countries, today, almost 100% of the transactions take place through digital mode. Almost 100%. In India, we don't know how much of the transaction still takes place in cash. My own guesstimates are that still more than 50% transaction takes place in cash. There is still a very large cash economy in the country. So we have a lot to cover. I think the time will not permit me to go into the environmental and other aspects. Yes, I'm just seeing 5 minutes signal. So let me rush to the last point. The theme of the conference is the elephant moves. I joined the service in 1983. And in last 40 years, the first break out, India is known as elephant for a long time, and movement of elephant has been described always as the point where you are making a move. So Rajiv Gandhi got elected in 1984 late, and the first electronics, IT, a kind of revolution started happening. If you'd recall, from 1984 to 1989, his 5 years of time, India had, until that time, of the highest growth which was recorded. 6.5% to 6.8% was the average growth. And it was, at that time, described that India, the elephant, has started moving. I did attend some of this presentation where this expression was used for the first time, that the elephant started moving. But what happened? 89, VP Singh and other things, and we had 1991 as our biggest crisis ever. So the elephant stopped. Then we had 1991 reforms, which everyone acknowledges were the biggest reforms India. Mr. Das called about this as the second freedom kind of thing. And India again started moving. The elephant started moving again. From 1991 to 1996-97, we had massive reforms done. We had good growth, and almost everywhere, China's dragon and India's elephant was the story, which will do better, and that is all. Then what happened? In 1970-98, again, we had coalition governments, problems, and other kind of things, including Atal Bihari Vajpayee government's first 3 years, when the average growth was less than 4.5%. For 5 years, the elephant again stopped, right? 2002, 2003, the last 2 years of Atal Bihari Vajpayee government, and first 5 years of the UPA government. In fact, elephant started running. That was the best growth we have ever recorded. You had 8% plus growth for continuously 5 to 6 years. Another showman, Pramod Mahajan at that time, said India is shining. the elephant was literally dancing and running. 2008, what happened? Global financial crisis, policy paralysis, and by the 2013-14, again the elephant slunk. Right. This is the fourth time in my 40 years I am seeing the elephant moving again. Let us see, that is what the reality check I would just leave you with. Will this elephant run for some time, or will it stop again? There are serious questions. Our 3 years growth is on very high steroids. We are running the largest fiscal deficits ever. 6.5% fiscal deficit for last 5 years. Right, is what is the average which we have got. We have very serious lack of reforms. I would argue with this if the time permits. Whether it's in agriculture, Mr. Ramesh Chand presented the data, I don't know whether you noted, the MSP does rice and wheat, and that is the one which is growing at the least growth rate. We need to fix MSP, we need to fix agriculture. Manufacturing, a lot was talked about, but manufacturing presents us very difficult choices. I don't have time. Should we move to, what do we want? We want electric vehicles, we want renewable energy, or we want to make in India. We have no sort of ability on the technology side of any of these things. Our power is cheaper because somebody else is producing cheaper wafers and cheaper cells, and we are able to import that as cheaper. Should we go for BYD and Tesla as the choice for us, or should we look for the day when we will be able to have our own battery technology? I think those are very difficult questions. There are services questions, there are infrastructure questions, and many other things. My own sense is that if we can address, when Mr. Modi comes for the third term, if we can address the real big questions, we will perhaps see the elephant dancing. Otherwise, the elephant will sit again. Thank you very much.